Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us for Prompting Success, an innovative approach to course planning. This is a re-recorded presentation of the one that we all presented at Slate Summit 2025. Let's jump right in. So the agenda for this presentation, we are going to give you an overview of the course planning process that we've built out in the University of Southern Indiana's Slate instance. There's quite a bit of prompt logic and some interesting prompt builds if you did not glean that from the title of the presentation. So we'll go through all of that. We'll go through the form builds and some rules as well. Then take a look at the permissions that we've assigned to different folks involved with this process. And last but not least, we'll take a look at the student and faculty portal views. This process is accessible both on the student-facing portal and the faculty staff-facing portal for the University of Southern Indiana folks. So we'll take you through exactly what that looks like so you can get a feel for how this process works in real time. But you'll also probably want to know who the three of us are. So let's introduce ourselves. My name is Allison Beebe. I am a Slate Student Success Implementation Strategist at Carnegie. And this process is a combination of Carnegie and University of Southern Indiana, or USI work. This is our second year presenting as a group, and we hope to be back again next year as well. But I'm very fortunate to be joined with two of my favorite USI team members today. So I'll pass it over to Brian if you want to introduce yourself next.
All right, thank you, Allison. I am Brian Crouse, and I'm the Director of Online and Adult Learning here at the University of Southern Indiana.
My name is Lindsay Gibson. I am the Academic Affairs CRM Manager at USI.
So if we look at what kind of, for lack of a better way of phrasing this, the prompt for instituting our plans of study for our students was that I have a student success person on my team. And one of their responsibilities was working with selected graduate level programs to kind of serve as an academic advisor. And one of the things that they do is to provide a plan of study to outline for our new admits in those graduate programs what their schedule is going to look like from the time that they take their first class all the way through graduation. So that was what we were doing. We used a Word template initially, and so we would have to go in every semester, update the Word template, and we would have to manually enter the data to account for any transfer credits the students may had, any prior learning assessments that they had received, different things like that. So it became a little bit arduous in a way to create those using a Word template. Once we had it in the template, we would copy a saved file of it in an email folder. We also were required to upload one into a Teams folder so that others would have access who do not have access to that email account. And then just for integrity's sake, we would also copy a version of the plan of study to a network drive. So you can see that there was quite a bit of manual work there, and it led to some organizational challenges as far as the file structures. When I took over the process, when there was a transition to a new student support specialist, I was forgetting to change things on the template, such as the username. So I accidentally sent one out to a student with a placeholder name of Minnie Mouse. So that was a little bit embarrassing to hear back from the student to let me know that I had put the wrong name on there. And then it kind of became a little bit burdensome because if a student changed their schedule, the number of courses they were taking, stopped out for a term, anything like that, we would have to go through and make a new plan of study for those students. Then it was becoming a little bit difficult and confusing to determine what is the most recent version of the plan of study and which one should we be using to send course registration information to the student for the upcoming term. And then also we face the internal challenge on our network of what are our storage quotas available in Microsoft Outlook to save copies of all those emails. our network storage. She was going to be responsible for going through and updating and archiving the network storage. Same thing with our Outlook to keep track of graduate students who have graduated from their program versus those that were still active and they came back, different things like that. So this is what kind of prompted us to look at what is a more efficient way to provide the plans of study to our students and allow those who need access to that plan of study, such as a faculty member, a program director, a program chair, to have access to these plans of study.
So I'll go ahead and share our views of our plans of study. So the screen probably looks very familiar to most of you. This is our typical student dashboard with advising information that helps our advisors meet when they're meeting with our students. So things like our SISID, program advisor information, and it's all listed here. You can also see the tabs at the top that we are sharing, or you can view submitted applications, the student's registration history, as well as their upcoming current or previous class schedules, advising note tab as well. But the tab we're primarily looking at today is that far right tab, the graduate plan of study. Once you click into that tab, you will see for all students that have this particular information, you'll see kind of the same view. To the far left of your screen, you'll see the Add New Plan of Study button. And then just below that, you will see our widget that contains the Plan of Study information. This widget is sorted from left to right, with the left being the first semester of that plan of study submitted form, going all the way to the right with the last semester that was added on that form. We'll go into a little further detail a little later on. Moving into, if you click that button, you will land on the appropriate programs plan of study form. This is an internal form, so students obviously do not see this information and cannot submit their own plan of study. We do have specific individuals in Brian's area that create this form for students. We do connect it with the user, so we're bringing in that form submitter information. And then we're bringing in student information and details to help us submit a more appropriate plan of study. This would include the program and concentration that they're currently enrolled in or accepted into, their entry term, as well as their link that they wish to complete the program. So we do have accelerated as well as standard options for most of our graduate programs, and that's listed here. And then we do have some internal processes that are mostly in Slate or soon to transition into Slate. And so we're bringing that information into this form as well. That includes our transfer credit process and prior learning credit process as well. All of that information is shown on this form so we can better create a plan of study and that it can be flexible to the student and their needs. A little further down on the form, you'll see we have each semester listed. So starting with their first semester and continuing on, you'll see how we get into the build of that a little later on. But we first ask the semester and year that you're starting this plan of study. We do want this form to be as flexible as possible. So we know that we may need to resubmit this form a couple of times as we're working with adult learners whose lives change often. And so we want this to be flexible and not always start with the term that they were accepted into. So you can choose that first term here. And then at the university, we do have buy terms available for our accelerated programs, and that can be selected once you choose the semester. If you don't have buy terms at your institution, you could skip that step. We'll get into the build a little later on that as well. But once you select our buy term, then the appropriate classes then populate underneath that option as well. And then lastly, for just a quick overview, we do share that information with the students on their portal. And so we have a plan of study view that they can click and review at any time that they're a current student. They can also print this as well. And then we have this also on the faculty portal so they can see that when advising students. And then I'm going to pass that on to Brian to go into the prompt build.
All right, thank you for the overview, Lindsay. So to create this, the first thing that I do when I create a plan of study for a new program is there are some new prompts that need to be created. So we have two prompts highlighted here. The first one is our graduate POS, stands for Plan of Study courses. So I go in and I'll walk you through this here in a moment and add all the courses for that particular program and assign a term that those are on our master schedule to be offered. And then the other thing I need to do is make sure that we have our terms set up correctly so that they pull across on that previous screen that Lindsay showed you to identify, is it in the fall semester, is it in the spring semester, and is it August start, October start, so on and so forth. So those are the two main prompts that I need to work on here. So this screen shows you the terms as we're set up. So we are offering accelerated programs and accelerated starts. So some of our programs actually have 6-term starts per year. So within those by terms, as are indicated here, of August, October, January, March, those are within our master fall semester. So I have created plans of study here that follow the traditional semester model. And also they have the buy terms. So I need to make sure that all the buy terms are set up within the semester, and we have these set up to rank order so that the fall semester, spring semester, summer 1, summer 2 are the master semesters, and then underneath those are our buy terms. So to set up a prompt for a semester, what I do is go to create new prompt, just fill in the value. So I fill in the value, in this case, of fall, and the category of semester, and put the order as 1. That's the only thing I have to do to set up the semester prompt. Now that I've gone over and created our semesters, now what I can do is start creating our course prompts. So as I mentioned, each course does need to have its own unique prompt. So you'll just see a partial listing here. We're going to focus in on the criminology courses down below, starting about 2/3 of the way through the screenshot here. But you'll see that I have all of our courses listed with a prompt, a value, and then also a category. And we'll walk through the category here in a moment, but this tells us exactly which term will that course be offered so that when we set up the actual form itself, we can pull in only those courses that are offered in a specific term. So on a term, or excuse me, a course prompt here, a little bit more information has to be added. So for the value, I include our course code and then also the course title so that the students know exactly which course it is, not only by the number, which they can search for when they go to register, but also the course title. So if they want to look it up in our bulletin, for example, or if they want to see how that course is going to present on the transcript. For the category, I use the first 4 digits there is our program code. So this is for our criminal justice program. So it's our MACJ program, as we refer to it internally. That is the program code that is set up within Slate for that program. And then you'll see here that the CRIM 601 course is offered in March, and also in May and in June. So we set up the terms that are being offered with the or statement when we create that prompt so that it could be on the student's schedule as an option for March or for May or for June, depending upon their term of entry.
All right, thanks, Brian. So we're going to go a little more into the build of the internal form. So here's a quick look at that form we went through earlier. We're bringing in, again, the student detail information and any information that would be pertinent to creating the most accurate plan of study at the time that it's being created. Moving into that first student details section of the internal form, you'll see we're connecting with the user to bring in the submitter first name and last name. And then we're also bringing in student information like their SIS ID, the program and concentration that they're enrolled in or accepted into, that first entry term into the university, as well as if they'd rather do a standardized or an accelerated option to complete the program. These fields are application scoped as well as person scoped, so we're bringing in those fields that already exist within our Slate instance. Going further down into the form, you will remember that we first choose that semester and year. So this is kind of broken out into sections. We'll just kind of focus on the first section of the semester in year one, but then you would just kind of repeat this process for as many years or semesters as you need. So we're bringing in that fall, spring, summer information that Brian talked about in that build earlier, utilizing the categories below as well. Going a little further down into that form, once you choose the appropriate semester, so in this example we chose fall, then you would bring in that by term information. Again, if you don't have by terms, you can probably just skip this step, but we're bringing in that by term information that's appropriate for the semester that you chose in the first question. Moving a little further down in that form, you will then, so you've selected the by term options, and now we want to bring in the courses that are appropriate for that specific by term. So that's where that category information that Brian was just speaking about comes in. We're choosing or we're focusing in on one by term, which in this example is August. And so we are choosing the categories that only have August in that category name, as well as the appropriate program courses that link to this by term. So, and then you'll see that we also are adding the conditional logic for that specific by term. I don't know about your institution, but at our institution, we have a lot of faculty members that like to click buttons. So now that we're back onto the plan of study tab on the student record, we knew that individuals would access this form and potentially submit a plan of study if there weren't specific rules around it. We definitely wanted this plan of study tab and the buttons to appear for the appropriate students. And so we did create a population, a permission rule, so the permission only lands on students that were either accepted or enrolled into one of the participating programs. And so plans to study tabs are just not appearing on random students. And then going into that tab as well, we have created several buttons for each program that lead to the correct form. So there's a form for each participating program. You can see in the background of this screenshot that we have several programs that link out to forms. And so to show the correct button on the correct student, we also created some logic behind those buttons to add the correct program button onto the students tab. Passing it over to Allison to go further into permissions.
Thanks, Lindsay. All right, y'all. So as Lindsay mentioned, we have a lot of folks playing around in our Slate instance at USI, and everyone loves to click buttons. That's the fun part. So we further locked down this process for all involved, just to make sure that everyone's only clicking on the buttons that they should be clicking on. So we created some additional roles and permissions around different aspects of this process, one of which is the ability to actually update all of those forms that Lindsay just showed on the back end of Slate. That is an exclusive right role and permission of the online and adult learning director. So if you are not that person or not those couple of people, you cannot edit the forms on the back end of Slate, which is what we want because you just saw all of the very complex logic and all of the things that go into making those forms. And we really don't want anyone to so much as breathe on it if they don't know what they're doing. So then the next couple of roles that we established were the folks that were able to actually submit an initial plan of study for a student, and then the folks that are able to go back and update that plan of study or resubmit a plan of study for a student. These are separate bullet points. I think at one point we had those allocated to different folks, but we ended up locking those down so that you have to be on the student support specialist team to do either of those things. So more of a front-facing action than being in the back end of Slate, but to actually submit or edit those forms, you do have to be a student support specialist. Now, what that submission actually looks like, we can dive into on our next slide, and let's take a look at the portal. So we're going to do just kind of a high-level overview first of the student-facing portal at USI, and then of the faculty-facing portal, just to give you some ideas of how folks are accessing plan of study and maybe some ideas for your own portals on how you want to organize and have this process flow. So first screenshot here is our student-facing portal. When students first log in, and this is our test portal for Lindsay's test record, this is what they will see. There's two different areas that students can access their plan of study. If a plan of study has not recently been submitted for them, they'll always still have that top bar plan of study button that they can click on or tab that they can click on. If their plan of study is ready, rockin' to go, they'll also have along the bottom of the screen that view your plan of study a little bit more bold and in their face, because if that exists, we probably want them to take a look at it. Just a little bit more of an aggressive call to action if that plan has been submitted for them and is ready to go. If we click on either of these, and we'll be taken to our next student view, which is the plan of study itself. So you can see here we have this plan of study outlined for the student by term and by term. So we can see all of the fall 2025 classes for August and October, the spring classes and their summer courses as well, laid out in this view that is scrollable for the students. So they have all of the information that they need when they're registering for courses each term. They can come take a look at this, see what they need to take, and then go ahead and complete their registration. If they wanted to print this out, pin it on their fridge, pin it to their shirt, whatever they need to do to remember to register for classes, they can also click on that print view button. And this is going to give them the opportunity, if we jump over to the next slide, to print this out. They can download the PDF version of their plan of study, and they can actually print this out and have a hard copy if that works a little bit better for them. So that's basically how the students will interact. But if we jump over here, we've got the faculty portal view as well. This is a little bit more involved because faculty members are typically the ones that are going to be viewing this information to have conversations with the students, and also if they are on the student support specialist team, actually submitting or editing these plans of study for students as well. So when faculty members log in, this is not their home screen, but when they click on that My Advisees button that we see at the very top, they will be taken to a list of all of their advisees. This is a fun one because we are on Lindsay's faculty portal, and we only have Lindsay's test record as Lindsay's advisee. So she has a nice light caseload, but if there were more students on Lindsay's caseload, they would all be lined up and each have their own row of information. But we see here, we just have Lindsay's test record here. And in the little gold box over on the left-hand side, if we were to click on Lindsay's name, it's going to take us to our next view. And this is all of Lindsay's student information. The first place we would land when we click on Lindsay's name is actually the student details up at the top if you're looking at the tabs along the left-hand side. So we're living in a world where I didn't put that screenshot in here, so sorry. But we click on the plan of study tab along the left-hand side, and then the faculty member would be brought right to this screen for Lindsay. And we're seeing a very similar view of the plan of study that Lindsay would have on her student side as well. So helping students and faculty members be looking at the same thing, the same layout, the same color coding, helps that conversation go a whole lot smoother if we're all looking basically at the same view. So that's why we designed that way. You'll see along the very top too, there are two tabs as part of this plan of study section of the faculty portal when we're looking at a particular student. The one we're on right now is highlighted to view the plan of study, but there's also an option if you have the right permissions to add a new plan of study. So if we navigate over there, we'll see this should look pretty familiar. The plan of study form is now populating here. So a couple of different functions that a faculty member could have, again, if they have the right permissions. They can add a new plan of study if the student didn't have a plan of study pre-existing, or they can resubmit this form if the student did already have an existing plan of study, but maybe something has changed. They can overwrite the one that was living there before. Similarly, with the multiple form logic that Lindsay was showing us earlier, this plan of study form that's populating here is specific to the student that we are looking at. It is linked to the program that they are registered in and will give us the correct form for that program with all of the correct classes, so on and so forth, without the faculty member having to make any selections. Removes another layer of potentially clicking wrong buttons. We are just populating the only thing that the faculty member should be able to see. And that is the bulk of the faculty involvement in submitting new plans of study. All right, y'all. So if we had y'all in person, we would love to take questions, but because this is a recording, we're going to give you all of our contact information. If you have questions, though, our emails are all here. Please feel free to reach out. And thank you so much for joining us to learn a little bit more about plan of study at USI.